What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. We got to address the elephant in the room. And now, while I've said I am not going to officially declare an election until an election is called, we've been dangled with this carrot on the stick way too many times. We've been told multiple times that we were going to see an election, we were going to see a vote of non-confidence, we were going to see Justin Trudeau step down in an election called. The list has gone on. But while I've said that I will 100% wait for full confirmation, I think we're pretty much there, and it's time to at least discuss what potentially is coming our way within about the next 72 hours. You've got outlets now like the BBC now showcasing Mark Carney's to call a snap election as Canada faces trade war with the US, says reports. Now, I've once mentioned, outlets like the Pleb talking about a week ago or so about how planes were being wrapped, that he heard from inside sources. And I said the same thing. I hope he's right, because you don't want to get Canadians' hopes up. You don't want to spur the chance of getting rid of this Liberal government if it's not coming. If we're going to wait until October before we go to the polls. I still hope he's correct for his benefit and for every viewer who's kind of waiting on this election. But let's get into this article, and then we'll kind of discuss if we think an election's on the way or not. Newly elected Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is likely to call a national election for the 28th of April, potentially as soon as this Sunday, multiple news outlets report. So it's not just the BBC, multiples are saying it now. With Canada's businesses reeling with a trade dispute in the US, Carney, a former two-time central banker, is expected to pitch himself as the candidate best equipped to take on Donald Trump. You're not going to win this election solely on Donald Trump. Keep in mind, I don't know why Mark Carney wants to fight Donald Trump. Didn't Donald endorse him? I mean... We've talked about that one. We've talked about why Donald gave him that endorsement. I don't think he's going to win this election showboating on Donald Trump. It says here, the 60-year-old politician newcomer took over as leader of the Liberal Party after former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stepped down from his 9-year term. Prime Minister's announcement, now keep in mind, he's not the Prime Minister. He is the leader of the Liberal Party. I hate that all these places keep acknowledging him as Prime Minister. If people want to really do their job as a journalist, it's a formality. He is not the Prime Minister of Canada. He has not been given a mandate. He's merely a replacement in a custodial position awaiting his tenure as Prime Minister. He has to get the approval of the House, which is still prorogued, by the way. It says the announcement to call the election and request a dissolution of Parliament will kick off a 5-week campaign for Carney and his political opponents. While the timing of the request to dissolve Parliament is clear, the exact election date is not. The Prime Minister is leaning towards setting April 28th as the voting date. Globe and Mail and the Associated Press reported on Thursday, citing sources in the government. So again, it's safe to say if that's coming out to those sources and these sources are talking about it, it's very likely that this is going to come through. Again, I'm still going to say take it with a grain of salt until an announcement is made. We all know how things change in this country. We all know how the rumor mill works. But I still think it's important to discuss. So please take it with a grain of salt, folks. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say that. It says here that some suggest a shorter campaign could work in Carney's favor. I don't agree, since much of the current national discourse revolves around the ongoing trade war between the U.S. and Canada, particularly after Trump's threats and actions. The election is almost certain to focus on Donald Trump's trade war and his talk of making Canada the 51st state, said the Globe and Mail. Carney has promised to uphold Canada's reciprocal tariffs if Trump maintains universal tariffs on Canadian goods not covered by Canada, United States-Mexico agreement. Trump has vowed to impose a sweeping range of tariffs on April 2nd on top of the 25% tariffs already imposed on Canada's steel and aluminum. Well, that's thanks to Doug Ford. That's because of Dougie Boy. Now, keep in mind, I would say that if an election is called, Trump has already tweeted out he was wondering when an election would be called. I don't think he'll put through anything at the beginning of April. In fact, he'll probably say he'll hold out until May just so that he can see where the election goes, who wins that election, and then decide what he's going to do to Canada. Says here the race will likely come down to a choice between Carney and the Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Before the threat of tariffs, Conservatives enjoyed a 20-point lead in some election polls. Now polls are indicating a much closer race. I still call bullshit on all of those. I think Pierre Poilievre still has a comfortable lead over Mark Carney. They're rigged. I don't believe a single poll. If you want to say, well, Derek, why wouldn't you believe the polls? Look no further if we're going to talk about Donald Trump than when he ran against Hillary Clinton. I understand that Canadian and U.S. are two different things, but the one thing I keep trying to tell my audience is that when they conduct these polls, it's usually about 1,000 people, and they tend to focus those polls on areas where they prefer a certain result. Meaning they'll probably poll people in central Toronto if they want a stronger platform for the Liberals. If they want a stronger support for the Conservatives, they'll probably start polling people in Eastern Ontario or Northern Ontario or Western Canada. These polls are rigged. When Donald Trump ran against Hillary Clinton, they were calling the day before the election Trump was going to get pummeled. Trump wasn't even going to see 10% of the votes. Hillary was going to absolutely destroy him. They were already recognizing her as the first female president of the United States. And then election night hits, boom, Trump destroys her. You can't call an election until election day. Don't believe the polls. Don't get discouraged to go and vote. This election is so important. It says here, when Canadians next go to the polls, the Liberals will face not only the Conservatives, who are the official opposition with 120 seats in the House of Commons, but also the Bloc, who have 33 seats, and the NDP, who are probably going to lose 22 out of their 24 seats. Jagmeet Singh has torpedoed his party. I don't see him getting anything moving forward in that election. Now, if you want further proof that Mark Carney is in trouble in this upcoming election and why I think he's in trouble, I've talked to great extent during our live streams about how I believe that Pierre needs to change course. That if he's going to win this election, the time for fence sitting, and what I mean by fence sitting is that when you is over. Now, what I mean by that, Justin Trudeau was essentially burying the Liberals. It was going to be a very easy victory for Pierre. In fact, this article even points it out when they talk about a 20-point lead. I know I said don't take the polls serious, but any lead that Pierre had at that point was because Justin Trudeau was actively destroying his party in Canada. With a fresh leader, some of those sheep that are willing to vote for people like Mark Carney are easily susceptible to come back and say, hey, it's a new coat of paint. It's like a new car. Everything's fine. I want to highlight two things that came out about Pierre Poilievre recently.
Acres of farmland. And
I'm going to have to put that. He's got music in his videos. I know Pierre always puts music in his videos, but we got to worry about copyright at some point. I tweeted this out yesterday saying that this is the Pierre Poilievre I wanted to see ages ago. Thank God we got it at his rally yesterday. Sorry, I tweeted it out this morning. My apologies. I got my days all confused with this move that's going on at our house. Thank God we got it at his rally yesterday. Announce policies and hammer down the Liberals. Let's go, Pierre for PM. Now, Pierre announcing a video saying Conservatives announced plan for Canada First with shovel-ready zones, pre-approved areas to build mines, data centers, pipelines, LNG plants, and more. So essentially what Pierre talked about in his rally was new policy. It was no more slogans. There was no more, look what the Liberals are doing. I know some of that came up in his rally, but one of the things I appreciated in his rally is it looks like he's pivoting. He's taking that step because it's not going to be a fence-sitting ride and an easy victory now. Pierre has to do what I said in my live stream. He's got to show some teeth. I think that by putting out these strategies, by telling Canadians, hey, if you're sick and tired of not being able to afford anything, if you don't have any jobs in your city, guess what? We're going to get past the red tape, the delays on the permits for all these projects, for all these companies. We're going to start putting people to work in this country. He's come out and said he's going to deport roughly 5 million illegal immigrants that are here that should not be. He's going to clean up the streets, stop the crime. I want to take a look at this clip because this clip says it all of what we're getting into in the next election. Pierre is going to destroy Mark Carney in any debate. And if Mark Carney refuses to debate, well, it's only going to pump up Pierre's numbers further because it'll show that he's an absolute coward. The Pleb. Again, go check out The Pleb if you haven't. If you haven't seen The Pleb yet, what are you doing? Good friend of ours. Love the pleb. Pierre Poilievre promises to make blue-collar trade jobs great again. His plan includes pre-seal programs in high schools to get young Canadians ready faster for good-paying blue-collar jobs. You'll remember a video I put out last week where I talked about Mark Miller before he got sacked, stating that he's going to bring in 6,000 undocumented construction workers, trades workers. Because, well, they're living here illegally, but we got to, give them jobs so that they can build houses for us, right? The houses that we clog up in red tape that we don't allow to get built, essentially buying up liberal votes. Pierre says enough. We're going to do exactly what I said in that video. We're going to start training Canadians. We're going to start giving high school students the independence and the affordability to get into a trade school program at a young age so that while they're in their youth, while they're vital and ready to work and full of energy, full of piss and vinegar, they can go out there and build our houses. They can handle, I don't know if you guys know right now, there's a huge demand for plumbers. Trades are a guaranteed success job at this point in Canada. I've told my kids, I've told my nephew, I've told everybody, if you're going to get into a job today, go get a trade. You'd be doing yourself a favor. Listen to what Pierre had to say during his rally and tell me Mark Carney isn't in trouble. This is where I say it's beyond Donald Trump.
We're going to back the trades. It starts with bringing in tax fairness to allow traveling trades workers to write off the full cost of their food, transportation, and accommodation to go from one job site to another in order to get things built. Second, we will ensure that the lion's share of federal education and training dollars is directed not just to university education, but also to trades-based education. Absolutely. Our young people need to be encouraged to go into the trades because the trades are where the big paychecks are going to come in the future. And finally, I'm going to be sending a big, beautiful present to every single high school principal. It will be a box about the size of this stage. And in that box will be modules for every single licensed Red Seal trade for pre-apprenticeship programs that they can voluntarily take on and provide to their kids in the schools.
Talk about a plan. This is the Pierre I wanted to see from day one. This is the Pierre that's now pivoting. And a lot of people are going to say, Fringe, we already told you that as soon as an election was called, he'd start unveiling his plans or his policies. And yeah, I get that to an extent. But I feel like they might have taken too long to get there. I don't think it's going to hurt them in the election. I think that when you start talking about positivity in the country, when you start talking about where we could go rather than where we currently are, Pierre's talking about the future. Mark Carney is talking about right now. Once the trade deal is dealt with, even with Mark Carney moving his company to the United States, I might add, what is there left for those 4 years that we want out of the Liberals? Absolutely nothing. Not that they're going to do anything beneficial for Canadians in that trade deal. Pierre is talking about securing Canada's future, securing Canada's economy, growing its economy, removing the illegal migrants, boosting jobs, bolstering trades, getting our own people educated instead of bringing them in from other countries to do the jobs for us. I see this as a win. I think that any Canadian with a brain cell that is fed up with the current way of living, fed up with living in sanctuary cities that harbor crime, criminals, woke ideologies, it's all going to come crashing down. And I, for one, cannot wait for the election to be officially called, hopefully this weekend. Again, we'll see. With multiple outlets now reporting it, I think it's safe to say it's been called. But just to be safe, folks, do like the Fringe. Take it with a grain of salt and say, I'm looking forward to it, but I'll wait for it to be announced. That's all. That's where I personally sit. Let me know what you guys think. Are you excited for the election? Are you going to the polls? Are you voting for Pierre? Let me know what you think down below in the comment section. If it's your first time here, I hope this video's earned your subscription. Make sure as you're hitting that subscribe button because, boy, things are going to get real juicy real fast if we go to the polls. Subscribe to our large Fringe majority here on the channel. Hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment down below. Turn on your bell for notifications, all that YouTube jazz, and join me live here tomorrow night for Friday Night Fringe, our live streaming weekly show, where I'm joined by my very beautiful wife, Mrs. Fringe, as we go through everything that happened this week in politics, everything coming up in the week ahead that we're aware of, as well as back and forth within the greatest YouTube community on the platform. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say outside of making these videos, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say this Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central here on the channel. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.